Would I be the asshole for suing my parents even though I'm an adult? Okay, it sounds bad, but hear me out. I, F18, was, F16, at the start if this story, which is important. So because of my B-Day and skipping a grade 1 graduated HS at 16. At the time I took a gap year and got a paid internship. With no bills other than a few purchases, I was able to save the majority of my pay, which is around $12,000. Once the year was up, I applied to multiple schools in and out of state. My parents knew this. Well, I'm guessing they didn't think I'd get into the ones out of state because they were very upset once I started getting acceptance letters. Surprisingly, the ones out of state were giving me large scholarships that would cover either all or most of my schooling. Well, only one in state gave me a full ride, and truthfully it was my backup, so to me it was a no-brainer to pick an out-of-state school. My parents didn't want this, so they made a deal. Pick an in-state school to complete my associates in, and they would cover whatever the scholarship didn't, as well as getting me a cash car and a reasonable apartment. Well, I reached out to my school of choice and they said I could put off my admission if I did in fact reapply with my associates. So I went with my parents' plan. Well, they got the car and I had to live my first year in a dorm and get an apartment the second year. Now it's time for them to pay for my second year, what the scholarship won't cover, and my apartment, and they're telling me that I'm an adult, 18. And need to be responsible for myself, i.e. refusing to get the apartment and pay for school. I told them that this was not our agreement, and they told me it's not like I can't afford it. Which is true. Working part-time and doing tutoring, I've put an additional $6,000 in my savings the past year. Well, at the time of the agreement I got the agreement written and notarized, so I told them that I would get it legally enforced if they didn't come through. Obviously they didn't take kindly to this, and I'd hate to sue my own parents, but I feel like I've worked so hard only for them to try and back out now. Edit. Since the legality of the contract is a popular theme, I'll put this in. The contract is legally enforceable. They had to sign a separate document allowing me, a minor, to enter a contract. At the time I told them I wouldn't take their offer if I didn't have a way to cover my butt. For those wondering how a kid was so savvy, I'm going to law school. Update. So I had another conversation with my parents. My mom was pissed that I'm so serious about taking them to court. She said that I was selfish and spoiled, and that hadn't they sacrificed enough, and it was time for them to live their lives. She ended up walking out and telling me she was ashamed to have such a daughter. As much as this hurt me, my dad was more receptive after my mom left. He apologized and asked if I'd be willing to compromise and stay in the dorm if they paid for my school. I told him this was fine under the condition the balance was paid by the end of June rather than the final day, August, because while I appreciate his apology, I can no longer trust them. I didn't tell him thus, but this would give me enough time to pay the balance myself, worst case scenario, and hire a lawyer should he not come through. I also had planned on taking a break this summer and not working, but seeing as I might have to potentially pay for school and a lawyer, I'll be getting a job and DoorDashing to put as much in my savings as possible. If you have a legal contract they are not honoring, suddenly not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your parents made you a counter-offer against the offer you got from one of your top choice schools. You accepted. Now they are not fulfilling their part. So you are well within your rights to sue them. But if the offer from the other out-of-state school is still open, and that was your preferred choice anyway, you might want to think about switching school instead. Because it seems like you will have to choose between maintaining a somewhat good relationship with your parents, or getting what they promised you by means of lawsuit. Not the asshole. Not when you have a legally enforceable contract. Why on earth did they sign it if they couldn't make good on it? Info. Why are they suddenly backing out? Can they no longer afford to? Given you did have a full ride and they made an actual legal agreement, then you're totally within your rights to have it enforced. You might end the relationship with them by doing so, however. Not the asshole. You had a contract drawn up at the start just in case this happened, so you must have thought it may end up in court at some point. Not the asshole. And I just want to say, nice move on the notary and going to law school. What kind of law are you going for? This offer your parents made influenced your decision of which school to attend. You wanted a different school, but they offered this deal to keep you nearby and you accepted. Now they're going back on it. If you'd have known they'd do this, you likely would have went with your first choice, right? This directly influenced your decision about where to attend, and they then backed out once they knew it was too late for you to do anything. I wouldn't be surprised if they made the deal just to lock you into the school and then pull the "you're an adult, it's your responsibility" line. They signed the contract, but I bet they're counting on you not enforcing it. Call their bluff. Enforce it. You say it's legally enforceable, so do it. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You're going to be a shark, and I mean that in the most complimentary way. Would I be the asshole for going to HR about my secret nickname? Throwaway because I don't want to be identified. Long story short, I'm a nurse at a hospital and I go to different floors as my job to help out. I have a pretty common name, think Jessica, Amanda, etc. There are several nurses with my name throughout the hospital and sometimes multiple on the same floor. Today I was working on a hall with a new nurse who didn't know me yet. She commented on how it was weird that this floor had 3 Jessicas on it. She asked me which one I was. I guess she thought I worked just on that floor, and I told her my last name. Then she asked if I knew Jessica with the nipples that works on float pool. The charge nurse was nearby and I noticed her eyes get kind of big and she looked nervous all of a sudden. I was confused for a minute because it had never heard this description, and as far as I knew I was the only Jessica in float pool. It dawned on me that she was referring to me without knowing I am apparently Jessica with the nipples. I guess this was just a known thing about me? 'Cause that nurse avoided me like the plague all day, and so did everyone else. The charge nurse tried to make it into a joke with me at lunch and I laughed to hide my embarrassment, but I am mortified. I had noticed my nipples sparingly in the bathroom mirror and thought it was just a rare thing when cold. I guess my nipples show through my sports bra and scrubs on a regular enough basis that it's become my secret identifier. I told a friend I was thinking about going to HR about this, but they said it was obviously a harmless identifier that I was never supposed to find out about, so it should have been no harm no foul, the same as Jessica with red hair, etc. I feel like it is not harmless though to use an identifier that is so embarrassing and made me the butt of jokes. I think I could be the asshole because I don't know what HR would do, and what if it is too extreme? I don't want anyone fired. ETA. Holy moly, I did not expect so many comments. Thank you for all of the not the asshole judgments and advice. I don't think I'll be able to reply to everyone cause life, but I'm reading it all and considering. I'll try to post an update at the end of my post once I make a decision on what to do. Ada 2. Hey guys. Not sure if Reddit gives you a notification about updates to posts you comment on, but here is what I've decided since I posted this. First, much to my shame, I am a very non-confrontational person, so I did not confront anyone. Due to this, I also decided not to go to HR despite the overwhelming response telling me to hear. After thinking about it for a day, I decided there wasn't much that HR would be able to do without just causing me further embarrassment and making the whole workplace awkward. I came home to some new bras my hubby bought me that fit all the criteria I wanted for bras, but I just hadn't looked very hard previously. He got me a size up from what I already had and they turned out even more comfortable. I'm currently not talking to my friend I'd mentioned because he was really insensitive and even brought up a time from our teen years where someone untied my top in the lake and everyone got a great look at my pepperoni nipples when I came out of the water. I also put in some new applications to local places for a new job and hope to be leaving this place soon. Thanks for all the input. Sorry I couldn't respond much between work and family once I got home. Not the asshole. The nickname is unprofessional and sets a bad precedent for the culture. In fact, it seems like you have 2 informal nicknames and yet some people choose to use the borderline harassment one when float pool is enough to identify you alone. Edit. Also, they really can't go by first name plus last name initial? Not the asshole, harmless my ass. That's sexual harassment and just a nasty nickname. Not the asshole, you need to talk to your boss and to our. This is a form of harassment. Instead of calling you Jessica with the brown hair, or short Jessica, or any other innocuous identifier, your colleagues picked a secret sexual one. And they know it's wrong too because they kept it a secret and they are being squirrely about it. You absolutely need to take this to our. This could constitute hostile work environment sexual harassment. HR needs to investigate and end this behavior. You can't allow this kind of toxic culture to fester. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. I was never supposed to find out about, so it should have been no harm no foul. If it's no harm no foul, then there's no reason to hide it from you. No reason why you should not find out, so I don't agree with this statement. The other nurses obviously did not want you to know, because they know that it might be wrong to call you that. I think you would not be an asshole to go to HR with this, but whether or not going to HR is an appropriate course of action really depends on how you are feeling. Not the asshole, the fact that a new nurse is calling you that would suggest that you've been introduced as that by someone else. Bang, out of order, defo go to our. Not the asshole. That kind of shit should have been left behind in grade school. Grown-ass adults shouldn't be giving names like that in the workplace, and if they are, it needs to stop. Obviously a harmless identifier that I was never supposed to find out about. If you were never supposed to find out about it, it's not harmless. Report it to HR and let them decide what to do. If you're worried about retribution, bear in mind that a. Retaliation is illegal and also should be reported, and b. It's entirely possible another coworker is uncomfortable with anyone on the floor having this nickname, so you're doing everyone a favor. There are plenty of other innocuous distinguishing names. I worked in a place where I was tall. Name. My very petite coworker was small. Name. And our third coworker was 757. Name. A reference to her area code and a joke she was in on and liked. Am I the asshole for refusing to cover up more? Bit of backstory: my grandparents, late 70s, early 80s, moved into my mother's house with my mother and I in September. It's only been the two of us in a 4-bed since my older brother and my grandparents needed to be supported in day-to-day activities, so it seemed like the best thing. Onto what happened. There hasn't been many issues between my grandparents and I since they moved in because I'm at uni a lot and it was cold, so I was wearing hoodies and jeans. There were comments that I wasn't dressed ladylike enough, but I just ignored them. Recently though, it's been getting hotter, so I've been wearing less. I wear sports bras and leggings to the gym or on runs and wear shorts, skirts semi-regularly at home, and since it's hot I've been wearing that a lot more even if not going to the gym, just because it's comfy and cooler. My granddad has been making comments about what I'm wearing. I'm showing too much skin. It isn't appropriate to wear crop tops, shorts, short skirts. I should be more ladylike and wear dresses and heels more, stuff like that. I should also point out that I'm autistic and I've struggled with the changes they've made since moving in, but I've put up with it because they're my grandparents and I have to respect them. One thing I really struggle with is switches being the wrong way round, which my granddad also makes comments about, as I always fix the light switches when I'm home, as otherwise I can't relax. My mother and Nana have both asked me to just cover up more and put up with it to make my granddad happy, and so far I have, but no one in the house. My mother sometimes does. Make sure the switches are the right way round, and it's really been affecting me. I think it's just because there's been so many changes and I've been moved downstairs away from everyone else despite me not wanting to, and the light switches is just one thing too much for me. Since no one tries to make me comfortable, I've decided I don't care what any of them say about the way I dress and started dressing how I want again. I wear sports bras, cover more than some of my crop tops do, and leggings, PJs, not see-through, and longish shorts, skirts, and whatever else I want, and have been getting shit from them all about it. I told them to either be fine with me dressing like this or do one thing to help me feel more comfortable in my own house that I pay rent to live in whilst my grandparents do not. They all told me I was being an asshole and to just put up with it, but I've refused. I've had to just put up with so much recently, them moving in, my being moved downstairs despite me not wanting to, changing the way I dress and act, and so much more. I just want them to make sure all the light switches are the same way round. Edit. I've had a few comments and messages about the fact that I've been wearing what I want, and I just wanted to clarify. I'm still not wearing what I want to. If I leave my room, I'm appropriately dressed 90% of the time. However, during the mornings when I go to the bathroom or after I've had a shower at night and am walking back to my bedroom, I'm usually in my PJs, and when going on a run or to the gym I'm dressed for that, but sometimes when I'm in my room I dress like that because it's comfy. My room is in full view of the whole downstairs and has a window in the door that people can see in. That's what he complains about. When I'm out in the rest of the house I'm fully dressed to make him happy. Not the asshole. You pay rent. Your grandfather can pound sand. Granddad. Why are you talking sexually about your granddaughter's body? It's really uncomfortable for me. Why are you thinking about my breasts? Say that once and it might end the problem. Not the asshole. Tell your mother that if they try to make you change the way you live in your own home, you will no longer be paying rent. It is not fair of your grandparents to try to force you into their standards. Not the asshole. I am sorry, but it is 2021. I get your grandparents are older and probably don't understand that we don't go outside dressed in 14 layers and skirts down to our ankles, but it's time to wake up to reality. It is your body, and ultimately your decision on what you want to wear. Clothing is supposed to be a freedom of expression and whatever you feel comfortable in. Don't let them tell you what you can or can't wear. So your mother, who was fine with you dressing the way you want, prefers to keep your grandfather happy when he's the one who's being unreasonable and rude. Wow. Mother of the Year, that one. Not the asshole. Even if you didn't pay rent, you like anybody else should be comfortable. The fact others are enabling his behavior is appalling. But hey, since you do, tell your mother if they keep pressuring you then you will stop paying rent. That includes being moved back upstairs because it's your home too while you pay for it. Not the asshole. Don't compromise on what gives you comfort based on some outdated principles. Your grandpa sounds just like the guy that would say, they asked for it because their clothes were so revealing. Not the asshole. You are dressing in a perfectly normal way. It's not up to your grandfather to decide how you dress, and the fact that he is so obsessed with it is creepy. The problem here isn't your clothes, it's your grandfather's inability to accept that it's not the 1960s. Not the asshole. And #X200B. Just ignore them. Or tell them firmly it is none of their business, and they need to harass you. Whichever you prefer. And #X200B. No need to discuss it with them. Am I the asshole for not renewing my lease? For background and context, I have been where I am for 5 years and I have never not once had any problems with my landlords. The setup is that they own 3 cottages that are rental properties and we are all within nothing less than a 2-minute walk from their main house and each other's cottages. I have the smallest cottage which is a studio and pay the least amount of rent. The other day my landlord requested that all of us tenants meet out in the parking area that they wanted to talk to us. We were all informed that they would be putting in a pool and that they were going to raise our rents by $40 a month for pool maintenance fees, since we would be allowed to use said pool. I responded no thanks, that with my sensitivities to the sun and heat that I was more likely going to just be inside enjoying the air conditioning. The other tenants responded in with their own reasoning. We were still told that regardless we were going to see this increase in our rent starting next month. I told the landlords that they cannot do this because we all signed leases and that they cannot change out rent until the new leases are signed. All of our new leases would be signed in July. The landlords then responded to expect the new amount to go into effect then when the new leases are issued and that our monthly rents will reflect this increase. Another tenant then asked what happens in the off-season when the pool is closed. Were they going to decrease the rent by that $40, and we were told no, it would stay the same. I finally responded with, okay, whatever you have to do, and went back inside. Later the other tenants and I all talked and decided that we were not going to renew any leases and that we were all going to all move out and get new places. This was not idea for me. I was planning on staying a couple more years until I was ready to buy a house, but I'm not going to pay an extra $40 for a pool I have no intentions or interest in using. The next day I went by some apartments that I go past every day on my way to work and stopped and checked them out. I found a studio similar to my cottage and was the same price and quite a bit included in the rent. I was approved and put money down to hold the apartment. Today, I took written notice over to my landlords telling them that I would not be renewing my lease and when I would be moving out. They told me I was an asshole because now they had to start finding new tenants since all of us were leaving. So am I the asshole for not renewing my lease? And #X200B. Due to word limits. I wanted to add some edits. 1. In the notice I made it clear that I am finishing out my lease and will have my cottage completely cleaned and painted so that I can get my security deposit back. 2. While I really didn't want to move out for another 2 years, this is actually working out better. My normal drive time to and from work is half an hour. This cuts it down to 10 minutes. Plus included in the rent is the water and sewer and gas. This also has laundry on site. I was having to go to the laundromat where I was. 3. I have never had any problems with my landlords. They have actually been really great up until this point and I've really enjoyed renting from them. And #X200B. Not the asshole. Your landlord tried to take advantage of you and responded with the classic shocked Pikachu face when you called him on it. I'm sure he thought it was a fabulous idea to offset some of his pool expenses on his tenants, none of whom were actually interested in having access to a pool, of course. You made the right decision. He could easily attempt more shady business if you continue renting the cottage from him. Not the asshole. You don't owe your landlord anything other than notice. Don't feel bad at all. Moving is normal and a very reasonable response to them changing the terms for the next year's lease. Not the asshole. This is a business arrangement, not a friendship. They came up with terms that you don't find acceptable and you are ending the arrangement in a businesslike manner. P.S. I've been a landlord for over 20 years. Not the asshole. Also, landlords is the asshole not for raising rent but for calling you one. A lease is a 1-year agreement between both parties. Your agreement was up. They are certainly allowed to improve the property and charge what they think is appropriate for the next lease term. That doesn't mean you are obligated to stay. Not the asshole. Your landlords sound totally unprofessional. Raising rent in the middle of a lease term is quite illegal and a violation of their own lease contract. The whole point of a lease is that you can choose to renew or not renew. Just like when you buy a cell phone, you can choose to keep the plan or cancel it when the contract ends. No different. If the service they are providing isn't what you want to keep buying, you leave. That's not asshole-ish, that's business. They told me I was an asshole because now they had to start finding new tenants since all of us were leaving. Finding tenants is part of being a landlord. You didn't push their tenants out, they did. Not the asshole. You've got no obligation to renew and you gave plenty of notice, in writing, which is good. Nah. I don't understand why you would consider yourself to be a potential asshole to be moving with notice when your lease expires. Nobody was the asshole until the landlords called you one. You are not the asshole.